Hello there! Welcome to Chapter 4 of my Jedi Temple Guard series. In Chapter 4, we'll take a look into the lightsabers used by the Jedi Temple Guards. Chances are you're eager to learn more about this particular subject, so let's get started. When the Jedi Temple Guards were introduced to the Clone Wars TV series, they would be seen wielding the Jedi Temple Guard Pike. This pike was a double-bladed lightsaber variant with a long, thick hilt that produced yellow blades. When we saw the Temple Guards again in the Star Wars Rebels TV series, we saw two more variants, the most notable being the foldable Saberstaff. These foldable Saberstaffs were similar to the lightsabers used by the fallen Jedi Master Pong Curiel, and with a careful eye, or clever use of the pause button, one can also find a standard lightsaber with a coloration and a visual aesthetic that mirrors the Temple Guard Pike, which is seen in the same shot. While the Temple Guards in Star Wars Rebels were part of a Force vision that Kanan Jarrus was having while inside the Lothal Jedi Temple, it's likely that these were indeed real lightsabers being seen in the vision, real in that they did exist at one point. This can be deduced by the fact that the Temple Guard Pikes appear in the dojo room within the vision, but this is where it gets good. This same room appears in the Star Wars Forces of Destiny comic, Padme and Ahsoka. In this room, Ahsoka Tano is having a spar with Barriss Offee. Looks awfully familiar, doesn't it? We'll be returning to the subject in Chapter 7. With that said, we can assume the Jedi Temple Guard foldable Saberstaff and the Temple Guard lightsaber were lightsaber variants that were used by the Jedi Temple Guards. As for exactly how they were used, and which lightsaber forms were most likely used with them, this will be covered in the next chapter. For now, let's describe the physical properties of these lightsabers. Let's start with the pike. The Jedi Temple Guard lightsaber pike is the iconic weapon of the Jedi Temple Guard. It features two blades on each side, a long thick hilt, and each side can act independently of one another. As mentioned in Chapter 2, the Jedi Temple Guard stats and the stats of the lightsaber pike are listed in the Nexus of Power and Keeping the Peace books. The Jedi Temple Guards have an agility stat of 2, however, the lightsaber pike they wield has an unwieldy rank of 3. In order to use unwieldy weapons in Force and Destiny, the character must have an agility stat that's equal or greater to the level in unwieldy, so the Temple Guard's agility stat should in fact be 3. Other than that, the pike stat shows nothing out of the ordinary for a Saberstaff, except for two things. It has one rank in the defensive stat, and it has a stun setting that can deal 4 strain damage in place of its regular 6 damage. The defensive property in the weapon is fairly straightforward. This as a level of the melee defense rating equal to the level of the property. As we've discussed in Chapter 2, the Jedi Temple Guards have a melee and range defense of 2. Then, in Chapter 3, we learned that the melee and range defense stats came from the robes. This would mean that when they wield the lightsaber pike, the Temple Guards would have a melee defense rank of 3 and the range defense rank of 2. The lightsaber pike having a defensive rating of 1 could be interpreted as it being made of a lightsaber resistant material, such as Frigg alloy. Frigg alloy was also used by Separatist Magna Guards with their electrostaffs, a weapon designed specifically to combat Jedi. However, the pike being made of Frigg alloy is just speculation, but this would justify having the defensive rating of the pike in Force and Destiny, and it would seem appropriate to use that material for a weapon with this length, so one could block a lightsaber with the hilt if they needed to. The stun setting is really interesting though. This would allow the Jedi Temple Guards to physically attack the target without causing physical harm to them. Much like how blasters had a stun setting, the Temple Guards could achieve the same effect with their pikes. At least, that's how it is according to the Force and Destiny Sourcebooks. This stays in line with the Jedi philosophy to prevent harm in situations where it can be prevented. The pike variant is never quite to scale, as many artists who work for Lucasfilm have different interpretations of it, so our best bet to determine the size of the pike is to look at the Clone Wars TV series. One would need to compare the height of the average Temple Guard to Anakin Skywalker, as they are often seen together in the series. They're about the same height. Now we must then look at the height of Anakin Skywalker's actor in the movies, Hayden Christensen. He's a solid 6 feet tall, meaning the Temple Guards seen within the Clone Wars are also around 6 feet tall. Regardless of which artist who's portraying them, a common trope with the lightsaber pike is that the pike tends to be half the length of the Jedi Temple Guard. Since the Temple Guard is around 6 feet tall, this will make the pike around 3 feet long. You'll also notice it has 2 thick ends and a thinner middle section. If you look in this video, the center portion of the pike appears to have the same thickness of a standard lightsaber, which typically have an outer diameter of 1.5 inches. This would mean the thick ends seen on the pike would have an outer diameter of 2 inches. This doesn't provide the most comfortable grip if you have short fingers. That being said, the length of the hilt is roughly 36 inches with a 2-inch outer diameter on the thick ends and a 1.5-inch outer diameter of the center hilt. The length of the pike's blades also tends to vary as well. In the Clone Wars TV series, the blades appear to be almost the same length as the hilt itself. In the Temple Guard art featured in the Nexus of Power book, the blades appear much shorter. I believe that they are changed to the length preference of the user. If you're taller, you can allow for longer blades. The pike also appears to have an internal activation switch which is activated through the Force. Overall, it's a very lovely and elegant weapon. Now let's take a look at the foldable Saberstaff. The foldable Saberstaff first appeared in Star Wars Rebels while being wielded by the Temple Guards in Kanan Jarrus' vision. These are about the same dimensions of a regular Saberstaff, 24 inches long with a 1.5 inch outer diameter. It is not currently known if the Saberstaff is lightsaber resistant as we proposed with its pike counterpart. What we do know is that it looks really awesome when you unfold it. The purpose of this weapon is to perhaps offer some versatility. With the hilt length being around 2 feet long, this means you get more blade length than hilt length, unlike the pike. Are you in a situation where you need precision and control? Only activate one blade. Do you need to be more aggressive? Activate both blades. We'll learn the details about this lightsaber's fighting style in the next chapter. Then, we have the Temple Guard lightsaber. I can't think of anything too significant about this one. It shares the aesthetics of the Temple Guard Pike, as it too has a thick end towards the emitter. You might think the color is off in Star Wars Rebels and this lightsaber variant is a different color from the pike. This is most likely a result of Rebels using a different color palette than Clone Wars. Since the Temple Guard Pike appears in the same scene with the same color, this is merely an artistic difference between the two series. This lightsaber would undoubtedly be the most versatile of the Temple Guard lightsabers, as it can utilize any lightsaber form without an impairment of some kind. I imagine this is for Temple Guards who are using this for training purposes or prefer the single-bladed lightsaber style of combat. Now, it's possible that there was a fourth variant of lightsaber used by the Temple Guards. Though, to be quite honest, I'm still not sure if this should be added to the chapter, but for the sake of curiosity and speculation, I'll list it anyways. Just please take it with a grain of salt. In the Force and Destiny Sourcebook, Keeping the Peace, there are diagrams of a Temple Guard lightsaber pike and a guard Shoto on page 46. What caught my eye here is that the guard Shoto shares many visual elements as the Temple Guard pike. Does this mean the Jedi Temple Guard also used guard Shotos? Is the guard Shoto pictured here one used by Temple Guards? I'm leaning towards no. To be honest, I think this is more of the artist being low on inspiration with designs at the time of making this and just mimicked features of the Temple Guard pike. The pike in the image appears a tad too stout and the artist mirrored the thick ends after they finished one side. You can tell because each side of the pike has a wheel clip used to clip onto the Jedi's belt. Maybe the artist was under time constraints? I'm guessing the artist was told, draw a Temple Guard pike and a guard Shoto. Since there was more reference art available for the pike, they drew that first. Then later on, they would base the guard Shoto off the Temple Guard pike because both have the word guard in it. I'm sorry if I may have burst your bubble about this, but that's the risk of deriving knowledge from a tabletop RPG book. But if it's any consolation, these books do contain the Disney and Lucasfilm seals on the back, so perhaps this design is indeed canon. Regardless, here's an artist's rendition of what the guard Shoto could have looked like if it was colored. This will end Chapter 4. Get ready for hyperspeed, as things will really pick up in Chapter 5, where we'll be looking into how exactly the weapons listed here were used, and which of the 7 lightsaber forms would best suit them. Goodbye, and may the Force be with you.